We are now learning, we're on the, last lap of learning the commandments and some of the ideas behind them in this week's Torah reading, which is called Kadoshim. Kadoshim. And all of them are designed for the same purpose, to reveal the Jewish people's holiness by means of their doing the right things. That's what it says, Kadoshim to you. Okay, so we've already learned here, there are about 50 commandments here, 51 commandments. So we've already learned 34 of them. So that means there's 16 left. So let's learn. And then we'll go to the text. See how this appears in the text. There's also a lot of commandments in this week's Torah portion, but they were repeated. This is a repetition of last week's. For instance, a lot of these forbidden sexual unions. Homosexuality is forbidden, and having relations with your mother and with your daughter and with your father's wife if he remarries, etc. So those are repeated. So the commandment is not repeated, but it's really a packed chapter of the Torah with commandments. Okay, here we go. This we already went over a little bit, but we'll do it again. Now, like I told you before, there's 613 commandments that the rabbis all agree in the Torah. Exactly what they are, there's small disagreements. If they're from the Torah, for some of them from the rabbis, which basically the commandments for the rabbis are also from the Torah, because the rabbis didn't make these things up on their own. One of the commandments of the Torah, and everyone agrees, is that the rabbis must make laws, especially laws to protect the Torah. That was the last sentence in last week's Torah portion, V'tishmoret mishmarti, that you have to make protective laws. Laws to protect the Torah. The rabbis are commanded to do this. Okay, but here we have some commandments of the Torah. So there is 613 commandments of the Torah. 240 of them, 248 are things that you must do, and 365 are prohibitions. Like we said, a lot of them deal with the Holy Temple, so that's not relevant until the Mashiach builds the third temple. And a lot of them deal with only the Kohanim, so they're not relevant to everybody, only the Kohanim, the priests. And a lot of them deal with the land of Israel, like some of the agricultural laws we just learned, about payah, leaving the corner of your fields for the poor, and things like that. And some of them are only in the time when there is a Holy Temple. Laws and like the Jubilee year and things like that. But in general, the commandments, according to one opinion I saw, the commandments that are really relevant nowadays are 270. Ani yashani b'libi er. That's what I read. Okay. 27. In any case, these are all of the commandments, whether they're relevant to us now or they won't be relevant to us now. I mean, all the commandments will be relevant to the Jewish people, because learning about them is a commandment. And this is God's will. The commandments are not just, political or religious, they got together with the big synod or something like that of Jerusalem, whatever it is, and they decided all these laws, made up all sorts of laws. These are laws from God. Okay, here we go. So there, like we said before, there are three types of laws. There are laws which are totally logical. You don't need the Bible to tell you these laws. Don't kill, don't steal. The laws that just keep society going. Then there are laws which are just religious. They're not really that practical, except for religious purposes. Keeping the Sabbath, putting on tefillin, all these rituals and things like that, signs that we have. Those are, and then there are commandments which make no sense at all, not practical and not religious sense. And here we got one of them. A lot of the agricultural laws. Do not eat the fruits of a tree for 3 years. We've talked about it a lot of times, so we'll just go over it quickly. Do not eat the fruits of a tree in the first 3 years after that tree is planted. That's a shlosh shanim yeh orelim. And it's also forbidden even to get pleasure from it. You have to burn it, all these fruits. And what you cannot burn, you have to bury. And if you eat one kazayas of it, in other words, like about an ounce, so the punishment is getting beaten, even if it's a doubt. This is only in the land of Israel, but outside of the land of Israel, it is forbidden, but not exactly from the Torah. If it is certainly orla, if you know for sure that you have a tree that gave an apple tree or something in the first 3 years, then it's forbidden. But if it's any sort of a doubt, no matter how far away, it is permissible. Okay, so orla is also forbidden if you know for sure that the tree is forbidden. Next, on the 4th year, the netar ravoy, the plants of the fruits of the 4th year after you plant the tree, then you take those fruits to Jerusalem and eat them in Jerusalem, and etc. Okay, sometimes it's permissible to take the fruits after you've plucked them and redeem them on money. Take the value of the fruits to Jerusalem, money. Then you can eat the fruits wherever you want to, but the value, that money, you have to use in Jerusalem. This is only in the time of that was in the time of Jerusalem, you could buy food with it. Nowadays, you have to redeem that money on other money, less money, and etc. Okay. Negative commandment. You're not allowed to eat like a ben sor of a mor. We did this yesterday. We said, why do we see this? The commandment of ben sor of a mor appears somewhere else. But nevertheless, it says you don't ochla al dam. It is forbidden to eat a type of eating which brings you to death penalty. What is the death penalty? This ben sor of mor. We talked about this yesterday. You have to, it's a certain amount of slightly cooked meat and undiluted wine, and you have to steal it from your parents. Negative commandment, not to lo ta'anenu. You cannot predict the future with astrology, giving times, etc., or even not with astrology, just crystal ball gazers and all these things. Right? They're looking at the future is you are going to meet a stranger, you etc. You can't do that. It says you have to go simple with God. This is mentioned several times, these commandments. Another, you're not allowed to cut the sides of your head, the hair, not to cut the sides of your head. It is right next to the hair, to like shave it. This is only relevant to a man, but not to a woman. This is relevant now also. We said also you're not allowed to shave the 5 sides of your beard, right? On the here, and on the tip, not allowed to shave. And of course, according to Kabbalah and things like that, you're not supposed to even cut your beard or trim your beard. A woman, though, this is only relevant to a man. A woman can do it. If you want to know the various laws relating to it, it's really only with a razor. It's forbidden to do, and people find all sorts of leniencies to take off their beard. But everyone agrees taking off your beard does not enhance your service of God. Negative commandment: don't make a tattoo. You can't make a tattoo. A person cuts himself and he puts an ink in there, forbidden from the Torah. The one who is not doing the sin is the one who does the tattooing, not the one who is tattooed, unless he helps, participates somehow or other. And to have the tattoo is also not a sin. You don't have to remove it, even though it looks not a very Jewish look, but it's not forbidden. There's one fellow in Chabad that I know, and he his whole body is that you can't see on his face. He didn't, luckily, before he was religious, he didn't make any, this is of course before he was religious, he didn't make any tattoos on his face, like on his hands. But his whole body from neck down is just one big tattoo. All tattoos. And it's as ugly as it is, or I mean, not to say anything bad about it, but it does not have to remove it. It's no sin whatsoever. Negative commandment. You have to honor, be in awe of the holy temple. What does it mean? You're not, when there is a holy temple, you're not allowed to go up on the mountain with your staff in your hand, or with shoes on your feet, or even stockings on, and your feet can't be dirty. You can't make a shortcut through the temple. You're not allowed to spit. Keep spitting, you can't. You have to go in with fear and awe in the holy temple we're talking about. And even though nowadays also the same thing, even though that the holy temple is destroyed, it still is remaining holy. Therefore, you're not allowed to sleep. You're not allowed to have a toilet. Okay, you're not allowed to joke around, even facing the holy temple. Nowadays, we don't have the holy temple, but we have the synagogues. So it says the synagogues that we have. Let me just see 1 second. This morning I made a whole class and I did not record it, so I had to make the class again. That's okay. It was an amazing victory for me because I did not get frustrated with myself. Okay. You're not allowed to sit in a synagogue and do your accounting over there. It's a quiet, nice, quiet place. It's a holy temple. Nowadays, also, there's a lot of people that say we must go up on the holy temple grounds, and those that the Arabs should not have any place there walking there. Well, I mean, they got a good place. The Arabs should not be there, but we shouldn't either. All the rabbis, most of the rabbis, there's some very genuine and good rabbis that say that you can go up, but there may be, I don't know, 1%, 5%, very small percentage. The Rebbe for sure was against it. The head rabbis of Israel that agreed with the Rebbe were very, very against going up because it's a holy place. And there's also laws of purity and impurity. And even though you can find all sorts of exceptions, not only that they really don't 100% know where the place of the Holy of Holy is and where the altar was, etc. Anyway, too many problems. Don't go. Even if they give you a chance, and they say it's the Jewish thing to do, and we must show the world that it belongs to us. Don't worry, Mashiach is going to come and he'll show the world it belongs to us. Meanwhile, don't rush in like Nadav and Avihu in a place where you're not supposed to be. Not God forbid that there's going to be a punishment like Nadav and Avihu. God forbid. If you do go up on the Holy Temple grounds, you do have who to rely on, but it's maybe 5% of the people. Okay, let's go. Negative commandment. Don't participate in any of the rituals of the Ov. Like it says, Al tivnu ala ovos. What is an Ov? He does all sorts of things that people hear voices, right? Somebody comes up to him and says, should I buy, amalgamated hubcaps or not? So the person says, just 1 second, and he does all sorts of weird things, and all of a sudden this voice comes out from under the ground. It says, no, yes, whatever it comes out, don't do that. Also, a person that takes a skull of a dead person, and he makes all sorts of things until the voice comes out from the skull. Also, sometimes the voice comes out from under his armpit, and he answers the person, right? Should I get married to this? She loves me not. Says, just 1 second, he takes the skull. Where he gets the skull from, I don't know. In the Pirkei Avos talks about this. Macbeth is a lahavdil. The Ose Maisim Elu Chayev Skila. If you do a thing like this, it is punishable by stoning. Stoning. You're not supposed to. Non-Jews are also forbidden to do this. Non-Jews also necromancy and and sorcery and whatever these things are called, and magic. Okay, it's forbidden, man and female. Negative commandment: don't do yidoni. It's another type of weird sorcery. Like it says, what is a yidoni? Yidoni is that he takes a bone from this bird that is called a yadua. That's the name of the bird. And he puts it in his mouth, and he burns incense, and he does all sorts of other things, whatever they are. Could be some of our listeners are already interesting to know exactly what are these other things. Don't do it in any case until the person falls down on the ground and he says, the future will be like this, right? Buy this stock, this horse is going to win the race. If a person does this, the punishment is stoning to death. Nowadays, there is no, of course, like we said before, a person has to be warned by two proper witnesses, and he has to immediately do the sin. So it's almost impossible to get stoned. But in any case, you should know that to get killed by the court, it's impossible. You should know that God does not like it. Right? If you got out of the death punishment, but you should know that you did not in any way please your creator. Exactly the opposite. I mean, he'll create you anyway. Nowadays, there aren't any punishments of these things, but just the basic idea that you're not doing the right thing. Okay. Positive commandment. Listen to this one. An elder person, you're supposed to give him honor. And you also have to give honor to Talmudic scholars and to stand in front of them. What does it mean as an older person? Now I don't know what an older person is anymore. People nowadays, 70, 80, they're not old anymore. In any case, an older person, let's say 70, 80 years old, even though he's not a wise man, you have to stand in front of him. Or the other way around, a child who's a genius, in Torah we're talking about. But you don't have to stand up completely. Okay, what's this? Even a non-Jew, you have to give him honor in words and etc. Give him your seat. Why? Because with age, you get experience, and experience is holy. So therefore, you have to stand up and give honor even to an old person. Okay, stories, etc. Sometimes you have to stand completely. Sometimes you have to remain standing after the person continues to walk. Right? You have to stand in front of your teacher as soon as you see him. Even from the very distance on the horizon, you have to stand up for him. Okay, the interesting laws. Sometimes you're not allowed, someone asks you a question in law and your rabbi is around, you're not allowed to answer the question if it's in the presence of your rabbi in order to show him honor. Unless it's a simple law that everybody knows the answer, just that this person doesn't. But if the rabbi announces and says, listen, no one has to show me any honor, you don't have to call me rabbi, you don't have to stand up in front of me, then it takes effect. You don't have to give him any honor. But in any case, it is a big sin that means you don't have to give him honor, but you cannot give him dishonor or to hate them. That's why it says that Yashkala, JC, is burning in hell, it says in the Gemara, in Gittin. He's burning in hell in a big crock of excrement because he taught to hate the rabbis. Anyone who hates the rabbis has no portion in the world to come, and he is put into exile because of the rabbi, etc. Okay. Next commandment. Don't you're not allowed to cheat in measurements or in weights. Like it says, says you're not allowed to, when you're measuring things, you shouldn't have false measuring implements, false scales, false weights, false rulers, right? It's a forbidden, it's a negative, it's a prohibition. And then there is a positive side of it. You must have accurate scales ways. So it's a positive and a negative commandment. The negative commandment is you must not cheat. The positive commandment is you must make honest weights, etc. There's stories, beautiful stories about people who are super honest in their weights, and God did big miracles for them. Negative commandment, not to curse your father or your mother. This is an addition that says you're not supposed to curse any Jew. Remember, we learned that last week. Lo lekalel av v'em, like it says, u'makalel aviv v'imo mot yomot. This is a person that curses his mother and father is punishable by death. Huh? And just I want to remind everybody again, there is no death penalty nowadays. And this is one of the reasons why, because everybody would get killed. Right? Nowadays, nobody shows honor to anybody. Okay. Nevertheless, this also comes from the sentence, Lo tekalel cheresh. What was that? We learned that. We learned that last week, was it? A couple of days ago. Lo tekalel cheresh. You're not allowed to curse anyone in Israel, and that's where we learn it from. And if you do, the punishment is stoning to death. Right. I think yesterday I made a mistake. The punishment, Rambam says, what was stoning? What does it mean? They took a person that was guilty and was punishable by stoning. So they took him on this sort of tower that was, 12 feet high, and they would push him off the tower. And if he died, he would die. If not, then they had this big rock that was there on the ground, and they would throw the rock on him. And if that didn't kill him, then, and the witnesses are the ones that have to kill him, unless he's a murderer. If he's a murderer, then anyone can kill him. If the witnesses don't succeed or they don't want to, anyone else can. But all the other crimes that are punishable by death, there have to be witnesses, and the witnesses, they're the ones that carry out the death penalty. And if they can't or they don't want to, then the person goes free. Pretty strange. You also can't even give your father an oath that there isn't a curse, right? Dad, you're going to take me tomorrow to the circus. We're going to the circus. Yeah. If you're going to swear to me, if you don't, that you should break your leg, huh? You swear? You can't do that to your father. Maybe you could do this to somebody else. Huh? Positive commandment. A person has to judge people with the punishment of burning. There's 4 punishments, right? Burning, beheading, stoning, and choking. Burning and choking is pretty much the same. They buried a person. This doesn't exist anymore, right? And when it did exist, it says that if there's a court that killed someone once every 7 years, there's one other opinion, 70 years, that's called a destructive court. Very, very rare, even in the time of the temple, that the death penalty was imposed. In any case, the punishment of sreipa is that they would tie a long ribbon around his neck, and they would bury the person up to his knees or whatever it was in dirt so he couldn't move, and his hands, I guess, would be tied behind his back. And then one person would stand on one side, one person on the other side, and they would pull on the 2 sides of this long cloth or ribbon, whatever it was, until he would open his mouth, and then they would throw in a piece of boiling, flaming hot lead or something like that. Pretty painful. Don't try it at home. Definitely not. Especially don't try it on yourself, but on your enemies. Doesn't exist anymore. That's the punishment of burning. What is punishable by burning? Certain crimes are punishable by burning, right? Like it says, for instance, the daughter of a Kohen, that she cheats on her husband, or a person that rapes his daughter, has relations with his daughter, or even his granddaughter. Okay, those punishments are punishable by burning. Why burning? Who knows? That's what. Next, not to go in the statutes of the non-Jews. Like it says, don't go in the statutes of the non-Jews. You're not supposed to try to copy their ways. Not to copy their ways, to copy the way they dress, to copy the way they look, to copy the way they make their haircuts, etc. And that is the end. Did I skip one? And that is the end of this week's Torah, the laws of this week's Torah portion. Now let's go in the law Torah portion, and we'll see that there's a lot of laws that are mentioned here, but they're not listed because they're already listed elsewhere. Here we go. Ready? Yes. Okay, we already did this. We did this today. Lo takifu pat roshachem. Don't cut the sides of your head or the sides of your beard. Lo tashchit pa'at zekenecha. V'sirat lanefesh. Slashes in your flesh you should not do. Or to make tuvat kaka or a tattoo, don't put in your flesh, I am God. Don't how do you say how does the word prostitute your daughter to make her into a prostitute, and therefore you are going to defile the whole land of Israel and make the whole land filled with zima, how do you say, with decadence. Why? Because a person, as a relations, first of all, what is he doing? He's using his daughter for his own monetary purposes, right? And not for the sake of marriage. If you allow this, then everything's going to be crazy. First, your daughter will have a child. You don't know who the father is. Maybe that daughter will grow up, and she'll get married to her own father, right? Or maybe that man will have relations with two girls. One will give birth to a boy, one to a girl. Those two sons are brother and sister, and they don't know. They'll get married to each other. The whole world, the whole land will be filled with all sorts of things. And not only that, sex will become a cheap thing. It becomes a cheap commodity. And so it's forbidden to do, especially in this. It's forbidden in general for a Jewish woman to, how do you say, what's called the zona, to open herself to non-marital sex. It's forbidden. Okay. My Shabbos you should keep. My holy temple you should fear. I don't know if the same thing with non-Jews, but I think that it is. I think that it is. But that's one of the questions I want to ask big rabbis, and I never got around to it. But it seems pretty clear that it is. It also seems pretty clear, but I'm not sure, that non-Jews should not use any contraceptives. Seems, don't, any of you non-Jews that are listening, let it be a question mark in your mind. I'll find these things out. I always say that I'll find them out, and I never get around to it. Okay, my Shabbos you should keep, and my holy temple you should fear. I am God. This comes to tell you that you should not go in the holy temple, like we said before, with your shoes on your feet and all these other things. Don't go to the ovos. We said the Maisa Ov, the Yidonim. Remember, he talks to a skull or something. Don't defile yourself with them. I am God, your God. In front of an old person, you should stand up and honor the face of an elder and fear from your God. I am your God. What does it mean? Nobody sees you doing this. Nobody knows if you stand up for the old person, except for God. You could be alone. It says, it has to be an old man that has some sort of wisdom to him, not just an old drunkard or something like that. You don't have to stand up for him. But if it's an old man that seems that he has some sort of wisdom, even if it's a non-Jew, but he has, like we said before, he has experience in life, you're supposed to give him honor and stand up and say, okay, ready? If there lives in your land a ger, we're talking about a convert, lo tonu oto, don't in any way make him suffer. Don't say to him, yesterday you were an idol worshiper and now you're coming and learning Torah, right? That was given from God. Don't do it. But don't say things like this. He should be like one of just a normal citizen. And you should love him just like yourself, because you yourselves were once slaves in Egypt. I am God. The blemish was just in you. Don't say to others, right? And this we say to them, where did you coming from? You came from idolatry. The whole Jewish people came from idolatry. We were all worshiping. Because I am God, your God. What does it mean, your God? Your God and his God. A convert is the same thing as you. Don't make injustice in judgment. What type of judgment? We already talked about a judge. We're talking about in business. Here we go. In business, in measures, in weights, and in liquid measures. Mesura is usually liquid measures. Let's see, it says. Mesura, this is midas halach, like liquid measures also. Moznei tzedek, avnei tzedek, ephod tzedek, v'hin tzedek yelachem. Just scales, stones. You ever see the scales that have stones on them? Put one stone on one side. I am God that took you out of the land of Egypt. And you should do all these laws and keep them. I am God, your God. It's telling that what? Here it says the Balaturim. It's telling that if you don't have proper weights and measures, it's as though you're transgressing on all of the Torah, the laws of the Torah. Cheating. Okay, here we have a lot of sexual prohibitions. Let's go. God spoke to Moses, and he said, to the Jewish people, you should say, each person of the Jews or the converts that live in Israel that passes his seed to Molech. Now, Molech was a strange god, and it's a bit hard to understand why is this big emphasis on this god. It's many times it's mentioned in the Torah. The thing of Molech, what was it? It explains it other places. They made two big fires. There's different opinions what it was. They made two big fires, and the father passes his son to the priest, who passes him between these two fires. Some people say he passes him over the fire. Over the fire. In any case, he devotes him to this god of Molech. Maybe it's for good luck. Maybe it's for something. I don't know. In any case, don't do it. And if you do, everybody will stone this father that gives his children, passes his child over to Molech. Why is it called Am Ha'oretz? These are the people, the Jews, that for them the world was created, especially the land of Israel. Or some people say, no, these are the people that are going to inherit the land of Israel. Remember, all these commandments are given in the desert. God said, I will turn my face against the person and cut him off if he gave any of his children to Molech, because he is defiling my temple and my holy name. Next commandment. And if everybody turns their eye away from this person, let's say it's a very important person or someone, and he did this thing, if they ignore him, then, and they don't kill him, then I will put my face against, I'll personally take care of him, and him and his family, and I'll cut them off, and all those people that go, that go away from me, that prostitute themselves, sell themselves out after the Molech, after this fire god, whatever it is, from their people. Okay, also the same thing, the people that go after the ovot, we said the necromancers and the sorcerers and the magicians and the fortune tellers, I will also put my face against them, and I will cut them off from the people. I have made you holy. You must be holy because I am God, your God. We're talking about the creator. You should keep my commandments and do them. I am God. A person that curses his father or his mother will die. His father and mother he cursed, he will die. A person that has relations with a married woman, namely he has seduced the friend, his wife's friend, he will die, both she and he. A man, and I just want to remind you again for the 20th time, the 50th time, that in order to kill somebody, the person has to, it's not just enough you hide behind a wall and you see the person doing something, except in the case of idolatry. But in all the other cases, you must go to the person, to proper witnesses, and warn the person properly, do not have relations with this lady. It is forbidden. And if you do, your punishment is death. And you have to say what the punishment is, right? The punishment is, let's say, stoning. And he says, oh, I don't care. And he has to do the sin almost immediately after you warn him. And the witnesses have to see it. Then he's put to death. And only then. But if there's a little bit of a time lapse between the warning, or they warn him, but they say, if you do that, you're going to be punishable by choking, and the punishment is not choking, it's something else, then there's no punishment of death. Okay, a person that has relations with the wife of his father, let's say his father has several wives, it's forbidden to have relations with any of them, even if it's not your mother. A man that has relations with the wife of his son, Kalato, both of them will die. Their blood is on their head. A person that has relations with a male, the same way as relations with a woman, it is a disgusting thing, both of them, and they will die. A man that gets married and has relations with a woman and her mother, there's a woman and a daughter, same thing, they will die, they will be burned by fire. That's this punishment of pouring the lead down his throat. Him and them, both the mother and the daughter and the man. There shouldn't be any zima. A person that has relations with an animal, he will die. A woman that allows an animal to have relations with her, both she and the animal are killed. A person that takes his sister, the daughter of his mother, or the daughter of his mother, or the daughter of his father, and he has relations with her. This is what's called chesedu. Okay, it's an unusual term, but in any case, they both get cut off from their people. A person that has relations with a woman, his own wife, when she is menstruating, then he has, they will both get cut off from the people. Cut off is a punishment from God, that the person dies before 60 or whatever. A person that has relations with his aunt, whether it's from his aunt from his mother's side, his mother's sister or his father's sister, it's forbidden because this is a sin. Both of them will be punished. Lashes. A person should not have relations with the sister of his father's sister. He should not have relations with his for his aunt. Why? Because Yisu Aririm Yamutu. He will die without any children. We just learned that in the previous one. This is coming to tell you what the punishment is. The punishment is getting cut off. What does it mean getting cut off? This means that he won't have any children. In this case, it means that he won't have any children, like we said before. A person that takes the wife of his brother, in addition to the fact that he gets punished for taking the wife of a mother, but even when when his brother passes away, even after his brother passes away, you cannot marry his wife. You should keep all these laws and all that I have told you to do, and so that the land of Israel will not spit you out I am God that brought you to the land of Israel to dwell in it. Don't go after the statutes of the non-Jews that I send you there, because all of these asu they did that chutzpah, and I was disgusted by the Gentiles that live in the land before you. Right, there was the Canaani and the Chiti and the Perizi and the Mori and the Girgashi. And I say to you, V'mor lechem, atem tirshu et admatam, you will inherit the land of these decadent Gentiles that were there before, and I will give it to you to inherit it, the land which is flowing milk and honey, zavat, milk and honey. I am God, your God, that separated you from all of the people. You should separate yourself. You should make a separation between permissible animals and impermissible animals, between permissible birds and impure birds, and don't defile your souls in the animals and the birds and all that crawls on the ground, which I have separated you and told you that it's forbidden. Ve'item li kadoshim, and you will be holy. So what do we see? What does holy mean? Holy doesn't, in this case, doesn't mean that you pray and that you learn your Bible and you do. Non-Jews also have their rituals and their prayers and things like this. How are you holy? In mundane things. Remember, that's what the Rambam said. Do you remember? The Ramban. We learned that on the first day. How are the Jews holier than anybody else? Because even in the mundane, optional things that they do, how they brush their teeth, how they put on their shoes, even in those things, they do it the way that God says, and they do it for the sake of serving the Creator. You will be holy because I am holy, and I will separate you from the nations, and you will be for me. And again, he repeats, a person or a man or a woman that goes after the Yidoni, right? To repeat it again, this, but here it's talking about the punishment. What is the punishment? Mot yamutu. They will die because they'll be stoned. Before it didn't say it, just said it was forbidden. Rashi says, here it's talking about what type of death. Death, above it was talking about a person just gets cut off. It says, if there's witnesses and you were warned properly, then the punishment is death. But if a person does the sin, goes after these, whatever is the magicians and sorcerers on purpose, but there's no warning, or there weren't witnesses or something is missing, then a person gets cut off from heaven. Doesn't have any children, dies before he's 40, 50, whatever. What if a person does it without any awareness? Then he doesn't know what he's doing, right? He knows it's forbidden, but he doesn't know the punishment, or he doesn't think it's forbidden. Then he has to bring a sin offering. All of the sin offerings in the Torah and in the Holy Temple were only if a person did a sin with, unintentionally. Unintentionally. Intentional sins, the law was just the same as now. You just have to repent. The Holy Temple was only for what they call shogeg, only for unintentional. So that which people say, now that there's no temple, how are you going to get forgiveness? It's a stupid thing, and it's inaccurate, totally inaccurate. Now that we have no temple, you get forgiveness just like you got forgiveness back then. Also the same thing, all of the same thing, anytime when it says in the Torah that a person is punishable by death, that's only if there were witnesses and if there was a proper warning. But if either one of those were lacking, then the punishment is kored, he gets cut off from heaven. So suffice it to say that everybody is already connected to heaven, but if you do something wrong, then not. So natural state of man is good, being connected to God, but we have to encourage and strengthen that connection by doing the Torah and the commandments, and then we will be holy. Have a good day with Mashiach now, Be'ez Hashem, God willing, tomorrow, 8:15 in the morning, Chassidut.